I never thought the tales my parents spun about the twisted forest would lead me to confront my deepest fears. As a child in Poland, I listened to their stories with a mixture of disbelief and dread, the kind that keeps you awake at night, staring into the shadows dancing on the walls of my room. They spoke of strange occurrences in the forest trees that grew at unnatural angles, whispers that echoed through the leaves, and the chilling presence of something lurking just beyond the edge of the light. Back then, I dismissed them as mere fables, figments of imagination, meant to frighten children into behaving. But now, standing at the edge of the twisted trees, their contorted forms a mockery of nature. I felt the weight of their words pressing down on me like the heavy mist that clung to the air. The chill in the air wrapped around me like a shroud as I stepped into the dense woods. My breath formed small clouds that danced away, swallowed by the silence of the forest. The crunch of twigs underfoot was the only sound, but it felt like the woods were holding their breath, waiting. I had been a forest ranger for 20 years, tasked with the responsibility of protecting this vast expanse of nature. Yet, despite my experience, a sense of unease crept into my bones, a whisper of caution I couldn't ignore. I was no longer just a guardian of the woods. I was a trespasser in a place that held its secrets close. The twisted trees loomed overhead, their branches intertwining in a chaotic dance that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Each gust of wind sent a shiver through the forest, and for a moment, I swore I heard voices carried on the breeze. Shadows flickered at the corners of my vision, teasing my imagination as I ventured deeper into the heart of the wilderness. The sun struggled to breach the thick canopy, casting elongated shadows that twisted and contorted, creating a labyrinth of darkness. I had always found solace in these woods. They were my sanctuary. But today, something felt different. The familiar trails I walked with confidence now seemed foreign, their paths obscured by a thickening fog that crept in from the mountains. An unusual series of disappearances among hikers had left the community on edge. Each case was more baffling than the last, people vanishing without a trace, their last known whereabouts swallowed by the vast expanse of the forest. I was determined to find answers, to unravel the mystery that hung in the air like a storm cloud. But with each step, the weight of the forest pressed down upon me, its secrets tripping me up, pulling me deeper into its embrace. I had heard the stories, the legends that spoke of ancient spirits and vengeful entities that roamed the twisted forest. Tales of those who ventured too far, only to be ensnared by forces beyond comprehension. I had always laughed them off, chalking them up to local folklore. But now, as I walked the familiar paths lined with gnarled trees, I felt the threads of those stories weaving their way into my reality. Suddenly, an old, weathered journal half buried in the damp leaves caught my eye, its pages yellowed and frayed. Curiosity tugged at me, urging me to uncover its secrets. I carefully brushed away the leaves, revealing frantic scrawls about the watchers that lurked in the fog, their presence felt but never seen. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages, the handwriting growing increasingly erratic, filled with desperate warnings and chilling accounts. They see you, one entry read, and if you listen closely, you can hear their whispers. I couldn't shake the feeling that the stories were coming to life. I felt an unsettling connection to the writer, a kindred spirit lost in the same woods I now inhabited. The journal spoke of a darkness that thrived in the shadows, a force that fed on fear and uncertainty. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the figure of the author materialize from the trees. The forest seemed to close in around me, the air thickening as I read the last entry, which ended abruptly, as if the writer had been interrupted. I could almost hear their breaths, shallow and panicked, in the stillness. The quiet weighed heavily on my chest, and for the first time in years, I felt the creeping tendrils of fear curl around my heart. The stories I once dismissed as mere tales now felt like a warning. I tucked the journal under my arm, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. But curiosity, that insatiable beast, pushed me deeper into the woods. I felt like a moth drawn to a flame, unaware of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Little did I know that my journey would lead me to confront not only the dark forces of the forest, but also the haunting echoes of my past. As I ventured further, the landscape transformed. The trees grew thicker, their trunks snarled and twisted, as if they had witnessed unspeakable horrors. The sky dimmed, casting an eerie pall over the path ahead. I could feel the forest's heartbeat in the silence, a pulse of ancient energy that resonated with my own. I was not just wandering through the woods. I was stepping into a realm where the line between reality and the supernatural blurred. With each step, I felt the weight of the stories I once laughed at pressing down upon me, the echoes of my childhood fears rising to the surface. I was about to discover that in the twisted forest, the past never truly stays buried, and the only way out is to confront the darkness that lurks within. The twisted forest was more than just a collection of trees. It was a living, breathing entity, steeped in history and burdened with secrets. The air was thick with a sense of ancient foreboding, a whisper of lives once lived and lost among the gnarled roots and tangled branches. As I tread deeper into its heart, I felt a connection to the land that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The forest had its own pulse, its own rhythm, and I found myself entranced by the way the light filtered through the leaves, casting eerie shadows that danced along the ground. I could see why people were drawn to this place. The beauty of the forest was undeniable. It held a wild, untamed charm that lured hikers and adventurers seeking solace or thrill. But beneath that surface lay a darkness that seemed to seep from the very soil. The stories I had heard as a child echoed in my mind, tales of those who had ventured into the woods and never returned, leaving behind only their whispers carried on the wind. Each legend was a cautionary tale, a reminder of the thin veil that separated the natural world from something far more sinister. As I walked, I remembered my parents' faces, their expressions a mixture of fear and reverence whenever they spoke of the forest. My father, a rugged man with a deep voice, would recount tales of the forest spirits that protected the trees and punished those who dared to disrespect nature. My mother, gentle and nurturing, would warn me of the dangers in the woods, her eyes wide with concern. "Stay close and don't wander too far," she would say, her voice trembling slightly. Those words had stayed with me, ingrained in my psyche like a mantra. The forest was also home to a variety of creatures, some benign and others that seemed almost otherworldly. I had spent years observing the wildlife, the deer that darted through the underbrush, the owls that hooted in the twilight, and the occasional glimpse of a fox slipping through the shadows. But now I felt an unsettling presence in the air, as if the animals themselves sensed the change. I was about to discover that in the twisted forest, the past never truly stays buried, and the only way out is to confront the darkness that lurks within. The twisted forest was more than just a collection of trees. It was a living, breathing entity, steeped in history and burdened with secrets. The air was thick with a sense of ancient foreboding, a whisper of lives once lived and lost among the gnarled roots and tangled branches. As I tread deeper into its heart, I felt a connection to the land that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "You're in their territory now," he would say, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Respect the forest, or it will take back what it considers its own." I had always laughed with him, dismissing his tales as mere bravado. But now, with each step I took, those stories felt closer to reality. Then there was Anya, the botanist, whose passion for the flora of the forest was infectious. The trees grew thicker, their trunks snarled and twisted, as if they had witnessed unspeakable horrors. The sky dimmed, casting an eerie pall over the path ahead. I could feel the forest's heartbeat in the silence, a pulse of ancient energy that resonated with my own. I was not just wandering through the woods. I was stepping into a realm where the line between reality and the supernatural blurred with each step. I felt the weight of the stories I once laughed at pressing down upon me, the echoes of my childhood fears rising to the surface. I had admired her reverence for the land, but I often wondered if she understood the gravity of the legends we shared. As I ventured deeper, I came upon a clearing where the trees parted, revealing a small, serene pond. The water was still, reflecting the distorted shapes of the trees around it, creating an almost surreal image. It was a place of beauty, yet it felt like a trap, a lure designed to ensnare the unwary. I knelt by the water's edge, peering into its depths, and for a moment, I thought I saw something move beneath the surface, an unsettling flicker that sent chills down my spine. Suddenly, the memories of the missing hikers flooded my mind. I could picture their faces, young adventurers, families seeking a weekend escape, all filled with hopes and dreams. Each disappearance had left a scar on the community, a wound that refused to heal. I recalled the hushed conversations in the town, the worried glances shared among neighbors, and the determination of those who sought to uncover the truth. Yet, as a ranger, I had a responsibility to protect the forest, to maintain the balance between nature and humanity. It was a duty I took seriously, but I could feel the tension in the air, a palpable sense of danger that urged me to tread carefully. The forest was changing, and I was caught in its grasp. The journal I had found weighed heavily in my pocket, a reminder of the warnings that had gone unheeded. I could feel the threads of fate tightening around me, pulling me toward an unknown destiny. The stories of my childhood had come alive, intertwining with my present, and I was about to discover that the forest held more than just beauty. It held truths that could shatter my understanding of reality. As I stood by the pond, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending ripples across the water's surface. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The twisted forest was calling, and I could no longer ignore its beckoning. I would have to confront the darkness that lurked within its depths, not only for the sake of the missing, but also to uncover the secrets that had haunted my family for generations. The path forward was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The forest and I were bound together in ways I had yet to understand. As I stood by the pond, the forest around me seemed to shift and change, the atmosphere thickening with an almost tangible tension. The whispers of the trees grew louder, echoing the stories I had heard throughout my childhood. Each tale carried a weight of warning, a reminder that this forest was alive with secrets, some of which were better left undisturbed. The forest had fallen eerily quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife replaced by an oppressive stillness. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to retreat back to the safety of the ranger station, but something held me in place. The path I followed twisted and turned unexpectedly, as if the forest itself was trying to confuse me, to lead me astray. My heart raced with both excitement and fear. I had spent years patrolling these woods, but now every shadow felt alive. Every rustle in the underbrush seemed to beckon me closer to the unknown. I recalled the stories of the lost souls, those who had ventured into the forest, only to vanish without a trace. There was the tale of a group of friends who had set out for a weekend camping trip, their laughter echoing through the trees, only to be swallowed by the darkness. Days later, their belongings were found, but the friends were never seen again. I remembered the look of anguish on the faces of their families, the desperate search parties that scoured the woods with little hope of success. Each story was a chilling reminder that the forest was not just a backdrop for adventure. It was a realm of danger, capable of trapping even the most seasoned explorers. As I pressed on, the trees began to close in around me, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. The light dimmed, filtering through the canopy in fragmented beams, casting eerie shapes on the forest floor. It felt as if the very air was charged with energy, a palpable force that urged me onward. I could sense that something awaited me deeper within, a truth that was both horrifying and compelling. Then, Just as I was beginning to doubt my decision to explore further, I stumbled upon an old campsite, long abandoned and reclaimed by nature. The remnants of a fire pit lay surrounded by overgrown grass, and scattered around were remnants of once vibrant colors, tattered tents, broken chairs, and the faded remains of a picnic blanket. My heart sank as I realized the significance of what I had found. This was a site of one of the disappearances, a place where laughter had once thrived, now silenced by the weight of tragedy. Kneeling down, I examined the area, searching for clues that might explain what had happened here. As I brushed away the leaves, I uncovered a small, weathered notebook, its pages yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was frantic, filled with disjointed thoughts and sketches of the forest trees with twisted branches, shadowy figures lurking in the periphery, and warnings scribbled in the margins. My heart raced as I read the words, each line a chilling echo of the stories I had heard as a child. It was as if the author had sensed the darkness that dwelled within the forest, the same darkness that seemed to be closing in around me now. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the silence, causing me to jump to my feet. I turned, scanning the trees for any sign of movement. The forest had fallen eerily quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife replaced by an oppressive stillness. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to retreat back to the safety of the ranger station, but something held me in place. A flicker of movement in the distance caught my eye, and I squinted, straining to see through the dense underbrush. There it was again, a shadow darting between the trees, too fast to identify. My heart thundered in my chest as I took a cautious step forward, compelled by a mix of curiosity and dread. The forest seemed to breathe around me, the air thickening with anticipation as I edged closer to the source of the disturbance. Every nerve in my body was on high alert, but I had to know what lay ahead. As I moved deeper into the undergrowth, the shadows grew denser, wrapping around me like a shroud. The twisted trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal hands reaching out to ensnare me. I could feel my pulse quicken, a primal instinct urging me to turn back. But I pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me gave way, and I stumbled into a hidden hollow. I landed roughly, my breath knocked from my lungs. As I regained my composure, I looked around, realizing I had entered a secluded glade, illuminated by an otherworldly light that seemed to emanate from the very earth. The air felt charged, pulsating with energy, and I could sense that I was not alone. In the center of the glade stood a figure, partially obscured by the swirling mist. My heart raced as I took a step closer, straining to see the face of this mysterious presence. The figure turned, and I was met with eyes that glinted like shards of glass in the dim light. They were wild and haunting, filled with an ancient wisdom that sent chills down my spine. "Why have you come here?" the figure asked, their voice a blend of wind and whispers. Every nerve in my body was on high alert, but I had to know what lay ahead. As I moved deeper into the undergrowth, the shadows grew denser, wrapping around me like a shroud. The twisted trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal hands reaching out to ensnare me. I could feel my pulse quicken, a primal instinct urging me to turn back. But I pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me gave way, and I stumbled into a hidden hollow. I landed roughly, my breath knocked from my lungs. The forest had a will of its own, and I had unwittingly crossed a threshold into a realm where the past intertwined with the present, where the shadows of the lost still lingered. I was no longer just a witness. I was a participant in a story far greater than my own. The figure raised a hand, and the mist swirled around me, enveloping me in its embrace. I realized then that the conflict was not just between me and the forest. It was a conflict of choices, of understanding the depths of fear and the consequences of seeking the truth. Would I dare to unearth the secrets that lay hidden within the twisted forest, knowing that some truths could lead to tragic ends? As I stood in the glade, enveloped in mist and uncertainty, I couldn't help but reflect on the intricate web of relationships and histories that had woven themselves into the fabric of the twisted forest. It was not just a place of terror. It was a tapestry of lives intertwined, each thread representing the stories of those who had come before me. The figure before me was a manifestation of that complexity, a reminder that the forest had witnessed both joy and sorrow, love and loss. One of the stories that lingered in my mind was that of a young couple who had ventured into the woods several years prior. They had come seeking adventure, their laughter ringing through the trees like music. Friends and family spoke of their passion for life, their dreams of exploring the world together. But as the days turned into weeks, their absence became a haunting presence. Search parties scoured the forest, but it was as if they had been swallowed whole by the earth itself. The couple's disappearance left a void, a chasm of grief that rippled through their community, and I had often wondered what had happened to them. The figure in the glade seemed to sense my thoughts, their expression shifting as they regarded me with a knowing gaze. "Do you wish to know their fate?" they asked, their voice resonating with an eerie familiarity. I hesitated, the question heavy on my heart. Part of me wanted to turn away, to flee from the truth, but another part yearned for answers. "Yes," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. It was neither male nor female, but something other, echoing with the resonance of the forest itself. I came to understand the disappearances. I stammered, my voice trembling. To find out what happened to those who went missing. The figure studied me for a moment, their gaze penetrating. "The forest holds many secrets, Ranger. Some truths are best left buried." As the words hung in the air, I felt the weight of their meaning. I saw them grow anxious as the shadows around them deepened, their carefree spirits dimming in the face of an unseen threat. The vision shifted, and I felt their fear as they sensed something lurking just beyond the tree line, something that watched with malevolent intent. They tried to leave, to escape the forest's grip, but the trees twisted and turned, trapping them in a labyrinth of despair. The anguish on their faces was palpable, and I could feel it clawing at my chest, the weight of their fate pressing down on me like a heavy stone. Why didn't anyone find them? With those final words echoing in my mind, I prepared to leave the glade, knowing that the real journey had only just begun. The intertwining destinies of the lost would guide me, and I would carry their stories with me as I ventured deeper into the heart of the twisted forest, ready to face whatever awaited. The mist swirled around me like a living entity, thickening and congealing, obscuring my vision as I stepped away from the glade. Each step felt heavy, weighted with the knowledge I had just received. The stories of the lost souls echoed in my mind, a cacophony of voices whispering warnings and regrets. It was a living entity that cradled the memories of all who had passed through its embrace. The couple's love had been both a beacon of light and a catalyst for their doom. In their pursuit of adventure, they had unknowingly crossed a threshold that should have remained undisturbed. As the vision faded, I felt a pang of sorrow for the couple, their dreams forever lost in the shadows. But my thoughts quickly turned to the other missing hikers I had encountered during my years as a ranger. Each one had their own story, their own reasons for venturing into the forest, and I realized how interconnected their fates were with the couple's. The forest had become a graveyard of dreams, a place where hopes and fears intertwined in a tragic dance. Another subplot emerged in my mind, one of the search parties that had scoured the woods for the lost souls. Among them was a young woman named Eliza, a passionate ranger who had dedicated herself to finding the missing. She was driven not only by duty, but by personal loss. Her brother had disappeared in the forest years ago, leaving her with an ache that never subsided. Eliza believed that if she could uncover the truth behind the disappearances, she might find a way to bring her brother home. Her determination was both admirable and tragic, for I knew that her quest had led her to the same fate as the others. She had become a ghost in her own right, her spirit trapped in the very woods she sought to protect. The memories of her brother haunted her, driving her deeper into the heart of the forest, where she had ultimately vanished. The stories of Eliza and the couple echoed in my mind, intertwining like the roots of the trees that surrounded me. "Do you see now?" the figure asked, their voice cutting through my thoughts. The forest weaves its own stories, binding the living and the lost together. Every choice creates ripples, and every soul leaves its mark. I nodded, feeling the weight of their words settle over me. The forest was not merely a setting for terror. It was a reflection of humanity's complexities, our desires, our fears, our connections to one another. The intertwining fates of those who had come before me painted a vivid picture of the dangers that lay ahead. In that moment, I understood that my own journey was part of this intricate tapestry. My desire to uncover the truth was not just a quest for answers. It was a confrontation with the very essence of fear and loss. The forest demanded respect, and those who dared to challenge its mysteries would pay the price. As the mist began to recede, revealing the glade in its eerie beauty, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I had to find a way to honor the memories of those who had been lost, to ensure that their stories would not fade into the shadows. The intertwining fates of those who had come before me painted a vivid picture of the dangers that lay ahead. In that moment, I understood that my own journey was part of this intricate tapestry. My desire to uncover the truth was not just a quest for answers. It was a confrontation with the very essence of fear and loss. With those final words echoing in my mind, I prepared to leave the glade, knowing that the real journey had only just begun. The intertwining destinies of the lost would guide me, and I would carry their stories with me as I ventured deeper into the heart of the twisted forest, ready to face whatever awaited. The mist swirled around me like a living entity, thickening and congealing, obscuring my vision as I stepped away from the glade. Each step felt heavy, weighted with the knowledge I had just received. The stories of the lost souls echoed in my mind, a cacophony of voices whispering warnings and regrets. I had come to the twisted forest seeking answers, but now I realized I was standing at the precipice of something far greater than myself. As I moved deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. The trees seemed to close in around me, their gnarled branches reaching out like fingers, clawing at the air. The sunlight struggled to pierce the canopy, leaving me in a perpetual twilight, where shadows danced and flickered, teasing my senses. Every rustle of leaves sent a jolt of alarm through me. Each snap of a twig felt like the forest was watching, waiting for me to make a mistake. It was then that I stumbled upon the remnants of a campfire, the blackened stones forming a crude circle surrounded by charred wood. The sight sent a shiver down my spine. I knelt beside the fire pit, my heart racing as I examined the ashes. There were remnants of a half-burned journal, its pages singed and crumbling. With trembling hands, I carefully pried the pages apart, revealing the frantic scrawl of a desperate soul. The entries spoke of fear, of being hunted by something unseen. The writer described nights filled with terror, eyes watching from the darkness, and the overwhelming sense of being outmatched by a force they could not comprehend. "It knows I'm here," one line read, "and it won't stop until it has me." My stomach twisted as I realized this could be another victim of the forest, another life extinguished by its insidious grasp. As I continued to read, a chilling realization washed over me. The writer had been aware of the forest's dark nature, yet they had ventured in any way, perhaps driven by the same curiosity that had brought me here. I couldn't help but wonder if they had been searching for something answers, perhaps, or maybe even a way to confront their own fears. I had thought myself different, more prepared, but here I was, feeling the same pull toward the unknown. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke the silence, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced around, heart pounding in my chest. The forest felt alive, the air thick with anticipation. I stood, instinctively reaching for the radio at my belt, but it was dead. No signal could penetrate this twisted realm. Panic surged through me as I took a cautious step back, my senses heightened, scanning the shadows for movement. Then I saw it, a figure slipping between the trees, barely visible through the thick mist. My breath hitched as I squinted, trying to discern whether it was a product of my imagination or something far more sinister. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. The figure paused, and I felt a strange connection, a recognition that sent chills down my spine. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a woman with a haunted expression. It was Eliza, the ranger I had heard about in whispers, the one who had searched for her brother. Her eyes were wide and wild, filled with the kind of fear that spoke of truths too terrible to comprehend. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice breaking the stillness like glass shattering. "The forest. It's not what it seems, Eliza," I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I've been looking for you. What happened? Where is your brother?" Her gaze shifted, darting around as if she expected something to leap from the shadows. "He's gone," she replied, her voice trembling. "I thought I could find him, that I could bring him back. But the forest took him. It takes everyone." Confusion and dread swirled inside me. "But we can find a way out together," I urged. "We can uncover the truth." She shook her head, a look of despair crossing her face. "There is no truth, only darkness. The forest feeds on our fears, making us believe we can conquer it. But it knows us better than we know ourselves." Her words resonated with me, echoing the fears I had carried into the woods. I had come seeking answers, but now I realized I was merely a pawn in the forest's twisted game. It played on our desires, our hopes for resolution, drawing us deeper into its embrace. "We need to leave," I insisted, glancing back toward the path I'd taken. "We can make it back together." Eliza's gaze darkened, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You don't understand. The forest won't let us go. It will twist our paths, lead us in circles until we're lost in its depths." A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned to see shadows shifting along the tree line. The air grew heavy with an oppressive energy, a sense that something was watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. My heart raced as I felt the encroaching darkness, a suffocating presence that seemed to seep into my very bones. Panic surged within me, and I turned back to Eliza, desperation clawing at my throat. "We can't give up. We have to fight back." But her expression hardened, a mix of resignation and fear. Fighting back is futile. It would not be easy, but we were ready to confront our fears and reclaim our stories, no matter what the forest had in store for us. As the shadows danced around us, I knew we were stepping into the unknown, but we would do so together, united in our fight against the darkness that sought to consume us. The turning point had arrived, and we would not turn back. As we forged deeper into the twisted forest, the air around us pulsed with a new energy, a sense of defiance that momentarily pushed back against the suffocating darkness. Every step felt charged with purpose, but the forest was not ready to relinquish its hold on us. It thrived on despair, feeding off the energy of those who dared to confront it. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath our feet, and a deep rumble echoed through the trees. "We need to move," I shouted, adrenaline surging as I grabbed Eliza's arm. Together, we sprinted deeper into the woods, the oppressive darkness closing in behind us, but the forest was relentless. The trees swayed and shifted as if they were alive, their branches reaching out to ensnare us. I could hear whispers in the wind, taunts and laughter that echoed off the trunks, reminding me of my own fears. "You will never escape," they seemed to say. Eliza and I stumbled through the underbrush, our hearts pounding in sync. We were running not just from the forest, but from our own doubts, our fears of failure, and the weight of the stories we carried. With each step, I could feel the darkness tightening its grip, and I realized we were not just fighting against the forest. We were battling the very essence of our own despair. As the shadows closed in, I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage within me. "We are not powerless," I yelled, my voice breaking through the cacophony. "We can choose to fight. We can choose to remember those who are lost and honor their stories." Eliza looked at me, her expression shifting from despair to determination. "You're right," she said, her voice stronger. "We can't let the forest win. We need to reclaim our power." In that moment, the tide began to turn. The forest may have sought to consume us, but together we could resist its pull. We would forge our own path, guided by the memories of those who had come before us. With renewed resolve, we pressed on through the darkness, determined to uncover the truth that lay hidden within the heart of the twisted forest. It would not be easy, but we were ready to confront our fears and reclaim our stories, no matter what the forest had in store for us. As the shadows danced around us, I knew we were stepping into the unknown, but we would do so together, united in our fight against the darkness that sought to consume us. The turning point had arrived, and we would not turn back. As we forged deeper into the twisted forest, the air around us pulsed with a new energy, a sense of defiance that momentarily pushed back against the suffocating darkness. Every step felt charged with purpose, but the forest was not ready to relinquish its hold on us. The whispers grew louder, swirling through the trees like a tempest, echoing our fears and insecurities. "You're lost," they taunted. "You will never escape." Eliza and I pressed on, drawing strength from each other as we navigated the labyrinth of gnarled roots and twisted branches. The oppressive weight of the forest pressed against us, but we held fast to our resolve. We were no longer mere victims. We were determined to uncover the truth, to reclaim our stories and confront the darkness that had ensnared so many before us. But as the forest shifted around us, the consequences of our defiance became painfully clear. The path we had taken began to blur, the familiar landmarks disappearing into the shadows. The trees seemed to conspire against us, their branches weaving tighter, creating a barrier that was both physical and psychological. The deeper we went, the more disoriented we became, our surroundings morphing into a nightmarish reflection of our fears. "Where are we?" Eliza asked, her voice trembling despite her earlier resolve. Panic was creeping into her tone, and I could feel the dread rising within me as well. "I don't know," I admitted, my heart racing. "But we have to keep moving. We can't let it win." It was in that moment of uncertainty that I felt a sharp pang of guilt. I had dragged Eliza into this nightmare, and now I feared I would lead her to her doom. The weight of my decision pressed heavily on my shoulders. What if I was wrong? What if my desire for answers cost us everything? As if sensing my turmoil, the forest responded. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and a low growl reverberated through the trees, sending chills down my spine. I turned to Eliza, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to go," I shouted, adrenaline surging as I grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. We sprinted through the underbrush, the shadows closing in behind us. The whispers morphed into a cacophony of voices, rising in pitch and intensity. "Turn back," they screamed. "You don't belong here." But we pressed on, fueled by desperation and determination. Each step felt like a battle, the very ground shifting beneath us, as if the forest were trying to swallow us whole. The air grew thick, and I struggled to breathe, my lungs constricted by the weight of the darkness. Finally, we stumbled into a small clearing, a brief respite from the chaos. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale light across the ground. I gasped for breath, my heart racing as I leaned against a tree for support. Eliza fell to her knees, her face pale and glistening with sweat. "We can't keep running like this," she said, her voice shaky. "We need a plan," I nodded, trying to calm my racing thoughts. "We need to confront whatever is haunting this forest. We have to find a way to break its hold on us." But as I spoke, I felt a flicker of doubt. What if we were not strong enough? The forest had consumed so many before us. How could we stand against it? The weight of those questions threatened to pull me under. Eliza looked up at me, her eyes fierce with determination. "We have to honor the stories of those who came before us," she insisted. "If we remember them, we can find the strength to fight back." Her words sparked something within me, igniting a flicker of hope. "You're right. We can't let their memories fade into the darkness." Just then, a rustling sound broke the stillness of the clearing. We turned in unison, hearts pounding as we prepared for whatever emerged from the shadows. The mist parted, revealing a man with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes, his clothes tattered and ragged. Recognition flooded over me. It was the spirit of one of the lost souls, trapped in the forest's grasp. "Help me," he pleaded, his voice a mere whisper. "I cannot find peace." Eliza and I exchanged glances, understanding dawning upon us. This was what the forest thrived on: our empathy, our compassion. It twisted our desires, turning them against us. But perhaps we could use that against it. "We will help you," I said, stepping forward. "But you must tell us what binds you to this place." The spirit's eyes glimmered with a mixture of hope and despair. I was lost in my own fears, consumed by regret. "I cannot move on until I face what I left behind." Eliza knelt beside him, her expression softening. "What did you leave behind?" He hesitated, the weight of his memories evident on his face. "I abandoned my sister in these woods. I thought I could save myself, but she was taken by the darkness. I've been searching for her ever since." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. This spirit was not just a victim of the forest. He was a reflection of our own fears and regrets. The forest fed on our guilt, twisting it into a weapon. "We can help you find her," I said, determination swelling within me. "But you must guide us." The spirit nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "If you face the darkness with me, perhaps we can break its hold." In that moment, I felt a shift within the forest. The shadows receded slightly, as if recognizing our resolve. But we had to act quickly. The darkness was relentless, and it would not allow us to linger in this moment of clarity for long. We formed a circle, the three of us standing together in defiance of the oppressive weight of the forest. Eliza and I reached out, touching the spirit's hand. "Together," I said, my voice steady, "we will confront the darkness." As we closed our eyes, I could feel the energy around us shift. The whispers grew fainter, replaced by a singular voice, the spirit's sister, calling out through the shadows. "I'm here," she cried, her voice echoing with longing and sorrow. With that, we plunged into the depths of the forest, guided by the spirit's memories and the resonance of his sister's call. The consequences of our choices became clear. We were not just fighting for ourselves. We were fighting for all those who had been consumed by the darkness. As we moved forward, the shadows writhed around us, but we held fast to our purpose. We would confront the consequences of our pasts, face our fears, and reclaim the stories that had been lost. Together, we would shine a light into the darkness, illuminating the path for those who had been trapped for far too long. The forest may have sought to divide us, but in that moment, we were united, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. He hesitated, the weight of his memories evident on his face. "I abandoned my sister in these woods. I thought I could save myself, but she was taken by the darkness. I've been searching for her ever since." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. This spirit was not just a victim of the forest. He was a reflection of our own fears and regrets. The forest fed on our guilt, twisting it into a weapon. "We can help you find her," I said, determination swelling within me. The spirit beside us, his presence a beacon of hope, guided our path, leading us toward the heart of the darkness that had ensnared so many before us. Eliza and I shared glances of encouragement, our bond deepened by the shared understanding that we were not just fighting for ourselves, but for the spirits trapped within the woods. The deeper we went, the more palpable the tension became. I remembered the spirit's story, the weight of his regret, and I felt a surge of empathy that fueled my resolve. "We are stronger together," I said, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to creep into my heart. "We will face this darkness, and we will find peace for you and your sister." The spirit nodded, his eyes reflecting a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice almost lost in the cacophony of shadows. "But you must be prepared. The darkness feeds on your fears. It will try to tear you apart." I remembered the spirit's story, the weight of his regret, and I felt a surge of empathy that fueled my resolve. "We are stronger together," I said, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to creep into my heart. "We will face this darkness, and we will find peace for you and your sister." The spirit nodded, his eyes reflecting a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice almost lost in the cacophony of shadows. "But you must be prepared. The darkness feeds on your fears. It will try to tear you apart." With those words echoing in my mind, we continued onward, determined to confront whatever awaited us. The forest opened into a vast clearing, bathed in an eerie, ethereal light. At its center stood a massive, twisted tree, a dark, gnarled behemoth that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The air was thick with an oppressive energy, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "This is it," the spirit said, his voice trembling. "This is where she was taken." Eliza and I exchanged a glance, our hearts pounding in unison. We stepped forward, drawn to the tree as if it were a magnet. I could feel the darkness seeping from its roots, coiling around us like a serpent. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of despair and anger. "Leave now," they screamed. "You don't belong here." But the spirit stood firm, his presence steadying us. "We must confront it," he urged. "We can't let it take another life." Taking a deep breath, I stepped closer to the tree. The air grew heavy, charged with a palpable energy that vibrated through my body. I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing in my ears. "We are here to find her," I declared, my voice strong. "We will not be afraid." As if my words had awakened something within the tree, the ground trembled beneath us. A deep, rumbling growl reverberated through the air, and the shadows coalesced, forming a dark figure that rose from the depths of the darkness. It loomed before us, a monstrous silhouette with hollow eyes that glowed with a malevolent light. "You dare to challenge me?" It boomed, its voice a thunderous roar that threatened to shake the very foundation of the forest. I felt a wave of fear wash over me, but I fought against it, anchoring myself to the spirit beside me. "We are not afraid," I shouted, my voice cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. "We are here to reclaim what is rightfully yours." The figure hesitated, its form flickering as it absorbed my words. I could sense the darkness swirling around it, feeding on our fear. But as I stood firm, I felt Eliza's hand squeeze mine, a reminder of our unity. "Together," she cried, her voice ringing with determination. With that, we stepped forward as a united front. "We will not allow you to take another life," I shouted, channeling all my strength into my words. "We are here to break the cycle of fear." As the darkness writhed and twisted, the spirit joined us, his voice rising above the chaos. "You cannot keep us here. We are not your prisoners." The figure recoiled, the shadows flickering in uncertainty. I could see the fear it had instilled in so many now turning against it, the collective power of our defiance pushing back against the darkness. "Release her," the spirit cried, his voice filled with desperation. "Let my sister go." With those words, a blinding light erupted from the tree, illuminating the clearing and dispelling the shadows that had clung to us like a shroud. The dark figure writhed in agony, its form beginning to dissolve under the intensity of our combined will. The light grew brighter, enveloping us in its warmth. I felt the weight of our fears lift, replaced by a surge of clarity and strength. "We are not defined by our pasts," I shouted, my voice echoing through the trees. "We are more than our regrets." As the darkness writhed one last time, I saw a figure emerge from the light, a woman with kind eyes and a soothing presence. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice a melody that resonated in my heart. "You found me." The spirit surged forward, tears streaming down his face as he reached for her. "Sister," he cried, his voice filled with a mix of relief and joy. "I thought I lost you forever." In that moment, the darkness fractured, unable to withstand the power of love and forgiveness that radiated from us. The dark figure let out a final, anguished roar before dissipating into nothingness, leaving behind only a faint shadow that flickered in the breeze. The clearing fell silent, the oppressive weight of the forest lifting as the light enveloped us. I turned to Eliza, her eyes wide with awe, and we embraced, tears of relief streaming down our faces. We had faced the darkness together, and in doing so, we had reclaimed not only the spirits of the lost, but also our own strength. The spirit and his sister stood before us, their forms shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "You have freed us from the chains of the past." As they began to fade, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The forest, once a place of terror, now felt different, transformed by our courage and resilience. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light could break through, and hope could be reborn. Yes, we made our way back through the twisted forest. I felt a sense of growth blossoming within me. I had faced my fears, confronted the darkness that had haunted me for so long, and emerged stronger than before. Eliza walked beside me, her presence a constant source of support, and I knew that together we would carry the lessons we had learned into the world beyond the trees. We had faced the darkness, and in doing so, we had not only saved the spirits of the lost, but had also discovered the strength that lay within us. The twisted forest would always bear its scars, but now it also held the stories of resilience and triumph, stories that would echo through the trees for generations to come. In that moment, I understood the true power of the forest. It was a place of both darkness and light, a reminder that even in our most difficult times, we could find a way to overcome, to grow, and to reclaim our stories. The journey was far from over, but I knew that whatever lay ahead, I was ready to face it, hand in hand with Eliza and the spirit of the woods, forever changed by the experience we had shared. As the light of the clearing faded, giving way to the encroaching shadows of the twisted forest, Eliza and I felt the weight of what we had just accomplished settle over us. The air had shifted, infused with a sense of both triumph and impending dread. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the forest was not yet finished with us. The remnants of the dark figure still lingered in the corners of our minds, a reminder that the true test was yet to come. With the spirits released, the oppressive atmosphere that had once choked the life from the woods began to lift. The twisted branches above us swayed gently in the breeze, as if acknowledging our victory. But beneath that calm, I sensed a brewing storm. The trees whispered secrets in a language only they understood, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was preparing to strike back. "Are you ready?" I asked Eliza, my voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. She nodded, her expression resolute, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. We both understood that the true heart of the forest was still out there, waiting for us to make a move. We retraced our steps, navigating the familiar yet unsettling paths of the forest. With each step, I could feel the pulse of the woods beneath my feet, a reminder of the life that thrummed just out of sight. But now, we were armed with knowledge, with the strength of the spirits we had freed. We were no longer just victims of the forest's terror. We were determined explorers, ready to confront the darkness once more. As we walked, I recalled the stories my parents had told me, tales of those who had ventured too far and succumbed to the forest's malevolence. I had always thought of those tales as cautionary fables, meant to instill a sense of respect for nature. But now, I realized they were more than just stories. They were echoes of the past, warnings rooted in truth. The forest had a way of claiming those who dared to challenge its boundaries, and I felt a deep sense of respect for the lives that had been lost within its embrace. Do you think we can really face it? Eliza's voice broke through my thoughts, laced with an edge of fear. What if it comes after us again? I paused, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. We have to believe we can, I replied, my determination unwavering. We've already faced so much together. We know its tricks now, and we're not going to let it manipulate us again. Eliza nodded, her resolve rekindled. You're right. We can't let it win. We have to confront whatever lies ahead together. The forest began to shift once more, branches creaking and swaying as the air thickened with an electric tension. I could feel the energy coiling around us, a silent challenge that beckoned us to move forward. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, but we had come too far to turn back. The spirits we had freed had given us strength, a reminder that we were not alone in this fight. As we advanced, the atmosphere changed dramatically. The whispers grew louder, no longer taunting, but filled with urgency. It was as if the forest was warning us of an impending danger. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, a primal instinct urging me to be cautious. Stay close, I urged Eliza, my grip tightening on her hand as we navigated the increasingly treacherous terrain. The ground was uneven, roots snaking out like tendrils, trying to ensnare us. Each step felt like a challenge, a test of our resolve. We needed to be vigilant, aware of our surroundings as the shadows danced around us, threatening to swallow us whole. Suddenly, a chilling howl echoed through the trees, reverberating off the trunks and sending a jolt of fear through my veins. What was that? Eliza gasped, her eyes wide with terror. Something is coming, I replied, my heart racing. We had angered the forest, and now it was ready to retaliate. I could feel the darkness gathering, coalescing into a palpable force that surged toward us like a tidal wave. Do you think it's the dark figure again? Eliza asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It has to be, I replied, my mind racing. But we're not the same people we were when we first entered this forest. We have the strength of the spirits behind us. With those words, I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. The darkness had one last chance to reclaim its territory, and we needed to be prepared. We will not be your prey. We are here to reclaim our lives and to free those who are still trapped in your grasp. The dark figure hesitated, its form flickering as if unsure of how to respond. In that moment, I saw a glimmer of doubt in its eyes, and I knew we had a chance. We had come too far to falter now, together. The shadows began to converge, swirling around us like a tempest, and I felt the familiar presence of the dark figure rise from the depths of the darkness once more. This time, however, we were not afraid. With every breath, we steadied ourselves, drawing upon the strength we had gained through our journey. Show yourself, I shouted, my voice echoing through the clearing. We are not afraid of you anymore. The darkness coalesced before us, revealing the distorted form of the dark figure. Its hollow eyes glowed with anger, a malevolent force that sought to instill fear once again. "You dare to challenge me?" It roared, its voice a thunderous growl that shook the very ground beneath our feet. "Yes," I declared, my voice unwavering. "We will not be your prey. We are here to reclaim our lives and to free those who are still trapped in your grasp." The dark figure hesitated, its form flickering as if unsure of how to respond. In that moment, I saw a glimmer of doubt in its eyes, and I knew we had a chance. We had come too far to falter now, together. Eliza shouted, her voice ringing with conviction. "We are stronger than your darkness." With that, we stepped forward, ready to confront the very essence of fear that had haunted us for so long. We were prepared for the fight of our lives, armed with the strength of the spirits we had freed and the bond we had forged through this harrowing journey. The climax was upon us, and we were ready to face whatever darkness awaited us in the heart of the twisted forest. As the dark figure loomed before us, the air crackled with tension, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. The shadows writhed around it, twisting and flickering like flames, casting eerie shapes that danced in the dim light of the clearing. Eliza and I stood shoulder to shoulder, our hearts pounding as we faced the embodiment of our deepest fears. "We will not be your prey. We are here to reclaim our lives and to free those who are still trapped in your grasp." The dark figure hesitated, its form flickering as if unsure of how to respond. In that moment, I saw a glimmer of doubt in its eyes, and I knew we had a chance. We had come too far to falter now, together. I shouted, my voice ringing with defiance. "You have taken enough lives. This ends now." With those words, the dark figure recoiled slightly, its form flickering as if unsure of itself. I could feel the energy of the forest shifting, a subtle breeze that whispered through the trees, urging us onward. Eliza squeezed my hand tightly, and I took a deep breath, drawing strength from her presence. Together, we took a step forward, our resolve unyielding. The dark figure unleashed a guttural roar, and the shadows surged toward us like a tidal wave, eager to envelop us in their grasp. But we stood our ground. "We are the voices of those you have silenced," Eliza cried, her voice steady and strong. "We carry their stories, their pain, and we will not be your victims any longer." As her words hung in the air, I felt an unexpected surge of energy coursing through me. The spirits of the forest, those we had freed, seemed to gather around us, their presence like a protective shield. I could almost see their faint forms, glowing softly with an ethereal light, merging with our own resolve. They were here with us, lending us their strength, their courage, and their hope. "Feel the power of the forest," I shouted, raising my arms toward the dark figure. "We stand united against your darkness." The shadows recoiled, the dark figure's form flickering wildly as if caught in a storm. The air was still, the oppressive weight of the forest lifting as a warm breeze swept through the trees. I looked at Eliza, and we shared a moment of triumph, our hearts pounding in tandem. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, united in our strength and determination. The spirits of the forest began to materialize around us, their ethereal forms glowing with gratitude and relief. The air around us shimmered, and the shadows began to retreat, unraveling like smoke in the wind. The dark figure howled in rage, a sound that echoed through the clearing and sent tremors through the ground. But we pressed on, fueled by a collective will that burned brighter than the darkest night. Together, Eliza shouted again, her voice rising above the chaos. "We are stronger together." I could feel the energy building, an electric charge that surged through my veins. With each pulse, the light we summoned grew brighter, illuminating the clearing in a warm glow that pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The dark figure writhed, its form distorting as it struggled against our combined power. "Release them," I commanded, my voice strong and unwavering. "Release the souls you have held captive." The dark figure faltered, its form flickering like a dying flame. The shadows that had once surrounded us began to dissipate, retreating into the depths of the forest. The anguished cries of the lost souls rose into the air, a haunting chorus that filled the clearing with a sense of bittersweet longing. I could feel their pain, their stories woven into the very fabric of the forest, and I knew we were on the brink of something monumental. With a final surge of energy, Eliza and I joined forces, our spirits intertwined as we directed our light toward the dark figure. "You will not take any more lives," we cried in unison, our voices echoing through the clearing like a battle cry. The dark figure shrieked, a sound that pierced through the air, and for a moment it seemed as if time itself had frozen. The shadows twisted and churned, the very essence of fear fighting against the light we had summoned. But we would not be swayed. We held firm, our resolve unwavering. Suddenly, the dark figure began to unravel, the shadows dissipating like mist in the morning sun. "No," it howled, its voice filled with rage and despair. "You cannot do this. I am eternal." But we were not mere mortals cowering in fear. We were the embodiment of hope, love, and courage. "You are nothing without the fear you have instilled in others," I shouted, my voice ringing with conviction. "We will reclaim this forest." In a final act of defiance, we released the full force of our combined energy, a brilliant explosion of light that engulfed the clearing. The darkness screamed one last time as it was consumed, the shadows unraveling and fading away into the void. The clearing erupted in a radiant glow, illuminating the twisted trees and casting away the remnants of fear that had long haunted the woods. As the last echoes of the dark figure faded, the clearing fell silent. The air was still, the oppressive weight of the forest lifting as a warm breeze swept through the trees. I looked at Eliza, and we shared a moment of triumph, our hearts pounding in tandem. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, united in our strength and determination. The spirits of the forest began to materialize around us, their ethereal forms glowing with gratitude and relief. It would become a sanctuary, a testament to the power of love and unity in the face of darkness. As we emerged from the depths of the twisted forest, the weight of our experience settled over us like a comforting blanket. The air felt lighter, infused with the warmth of the sun breaking through the canopy above. We had faced the darkness, confronted our fears, and emerged not only victorious but transformed. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over the clearing, we stood together, ready to embrace whatever came next. The forest had changed, transformed by our courage and determination. We had faced the darkness, and in doing so, we had found our strength, our purpose, and our bond with the spirits surrounding us. We turned away from the clearing, ready to return to the world beyond the forest, knowing that we would carry the light of hope with us wherever we went. The twisted forest would no longer be a place of fear. It would become a sanctuary, a testament to the power of love and unity in the face of darkness. As we emerged from the depths of the twisted forest, the weight of our experience settled over us like a comforting blanket. The air felt lighter, infused with the warmth of the sun breaking through the canopy above. We had faced the darkness, confronted our fears, and emerged not only victorious but transformed. The once menacing trees now stood as guardians, their twisted forms no longer a source of dread, but a reminder of the strength we had discovered within ourselves. I glanced at Eliza, her eyes sparkling with a newfound sense of purpose. The journey had changed us both. We were no longer just individuals wandering through life. We were warriors of the light, protectors of the stories that had shaped our past and the lives that had been lost in the shadows of the forest. Each step we took away from the clearing felt like a reaffirmation of our commitment to honor the spirits we had freed and to ensure that their stories would not be forgotten. Back in the town, the news of our triumph began to spread. The community, once gripped by fear of the forest, slowly began to embrace it as a place of healing and remembrance. We organized gatherings where we shared tales of those who had been lost and celebrated the spirits that once haunted the woods. The twisted forest transformed from a place of terror into a sanctuary for those seeking solace, adventure, and connection to the past. The spirits of the forest had guided us, and in return, we vowed to protect their legacy. We established a ranger program that educated visitors about the rich history of the forest, the importance of preserving its beauty, and the lessons learned from the darkness that had once prevailed. Our experiences became a beacon of hope for those who wandered into the woods, reminding them of the power of unity and the strength found in confronting one's fears. I often revisited the clearing, now a place of light and energy where the spirits could dance freely without restraint. The forest thrived, its colors more vibrant, its sounds more harmonious. And with each visit, I felt the presence of those we had freed, their gratitude wrapping around me like a warm embrace. Eliza and I forged a bond that transcended friendship. We became partners in our mission to protect and honor the forest. Together, we continued to share our stories, to inspire others to seek their own truths, and to remind everyone that even in the darkest of places, there is always a light waiting to be found. Years passed, and the twisted forest continued to thrive. The community embraced it as a symbol of resilience and hope, a testament to the power of confronting fears and reclaiming lost stories. Eliza and I remained at the heart of this transformation, guiding visitors through the woods and sharing the tales of those who had once been lost. The spirits, now at peace, lingered in the air, their energy woven into the very fabric of the forest. We had turned a place of darkness into a sanctuary of light, a living reminder of the strength found in unity and love. Join us in celebrating the beauty and mystery of the twisted forest. Share your own stories of courage and resilience, and help us honor the spirits of those who walked before us. Visit our ranger programs to learn more about the history and significance of this magical place. Each step we took away from the clearing felt like a reaffirmation of our commitment to honor the spirits we had freed and to ensure that their stories would not be forgotten. Back in the town, the news of our triumph began to spread. The community, once gripped by fear of the forest, slowly began to embrace it as a place of healing and remembrance. We organized gatherings where we shared tales of those who had been lost and celebrated the spirits that once haunted the woods.